What does traditional project managers do? They get stuck into plans and sooner or later miss deadlines. Next step, use the plan to beat up people over the head about missing dates and simultaneously find excuses for the team in front of stakeholders. Even if planning is important, this is not the best way. We'll find out about planning poker later in this lecture, but the idea is that in Scrum you plan, but stop soon enough to start doing things. So what really is enough to get started? When you look at Scrum, there are so many opportunities to plan, execute and deliver. Remember the reason for using Scrum: deliver something of value to your customer and to end users. Reduce risk, deliver, inspect and adapt. Really? Seems like I may be overusing the words deliver and really. Wonder why it needs repeating. Really, as a Scrum Master though, remember, who is really responsible for delivering on a Scrum team? The team. Yes, so as a Scrum Master you are responsible for facilitating the process or framework or whatever you want to call Scrum and making sure the Scrum team understands their roles. Oh, and also working with the product owner and all the outside stakeholders. Welcome to reality. When we talk about the estimates, we come across with questions like how do we estimate, what approach to be followed, how accurate they will be, who are the better people for estimating. I estimated that future but it went beyond the estimated duration. Why? In my experience, nobody ever likes estimating. It looks too much like making a prediction about what will happen in the future to which will later be held. This being the case, we expect to be judged for our failures. If this is the case, that is a failure of management. There needs to be an open, honest approach for estimation to be worthwhile, and that includes the explicit right to change an estimate whenever new data becomes available. Estimates are valuable for one thing only: to enable managers and clients to plan according to when they will receive software, how much it will cost and how much it will be worth. To this end, software developers should always work to give the most clear, most accurate, most complete information they can to other stakeholders within the constraint that it should not be wasting effort, but an almost natural offshoot of key development activity. Clients and managers should to understand the problems faced by developers in producing estimates, and understanding the new information will always emerge during a development cycles that renders any estimate invalid. Better estimates can significantly change the course of a software development project and its budget result. Often, the goal is to predict the schedule needed to deliver a specific amount of functionality, and frequently estimators are forced to provide a single point estimate. The first suggestion is to re-estimate each feature's best and worst cases. A Fibonacci sequence is used because it reflects the greater uncertainty associated with estimates for larger units of work. Other suggestions can be to use planning poker for the items that are already in the product backlog. For this there are two levels of planning. Strategic level means you will get estimates from story level in the product backlog, and tactical level means you will get estimate for task level in the sprint backlog. Sprint should be the same length within a project. Keeping the sprint's length consistent helps you measure the development team's performance and plan better at each new sprint. Each sprint includes the followings: sprint planning at the beginning of the sprint, daily Scrum meetings, development time, a sprint review and a sprint retrospective at the end of the sprint. What is a sprint backlog? The sprint backlog is a list of user stories associated with the current sprint and related tasks. When planning your sprint, you need to do the followings: establish goals for your sprint, choose the user stories that support those goals, break user stories into specific development tasks. I just want to remember you that the sprint backlog includes the list of user stories within the sprint in order of priority, the relative effort estimate for each user story, the tasks necessary to develop each user story, and the effort in hours to complete each task. For a successful sprint planning meeting, make sure everyone involved, including the product owner, in the session is dedicated to the effort for the entire meeting. Base the length of your sprint planning meeting on the length of your sprints. Meet for no more than 2 hours for every week of your sprints. This time box is one of the rules of Scrum. On agile projects, the practice of limiting the time of your meetings is sometimes called time boxing. Keeping your meetings time boxed ensures that the development team has the time it needs to create the product. What is the differences between short sprints and long sprints? Short sprint equals agile, equals less time in the wrong direction, equals quick feedback, equals learn and improve faster. Long sprint equals more time to build, more room to recover from problems. Product owners likes short sprints, team likes longer sprints. Don't analyze, try different lengths, find arguments to stick with one. Checklist for sprint planning. A sprint goal and demo date. List of which stories the team has accepted for this sprint. Estimate fill-in for each story in sprint. How to demo fill-in for each story in sprint. Velocity and resource calculations, team members and their commitments. Specify time and place for daily scrum. Stories broken down into tasks and subtasks. How a sprint can be cancelled. Before the sprint time box is over, by the product owner which has the authority to cancel it, if the sprint goals become obsolete, if it no longer makes sense given the circumstances, if done product backlog items are reviewed, potentially releasable, gets accepted, if product backlog items are re-estimated and put back on the product backlog, if new sprint planning meeting is a must. There are some assumptions that are a must so as the estimates make sense. The team can estimate well in a relative manner and come to a consensus on the point value of a story. The team can organize itself well to manage the sprint backlog and work together, help each other, etc. There is a strong sense of the team committing to a sprint rather than individuals. Once committed to the sprint work, team members should not be disturbed by adding additional work or different work than assigned to the team members. Available time for sprint-related work is equal average workday time minus time allocated for other activities. Average workday time equals 9 hours. Time allocated for other activities is 4 hours. Emails and phone, half an hour. Lunch, 1 hour. Reading, half an hour. Meetings, half an hour. Bug fixes, 1.5 hours. Available time for sprint-related work equals 5 hours. The management metric for project delivery needs to be a unit of production. Production is the precondition to revenue. Hours completed tell the product owner nothing about how many features he can ship and when he can ship them. The metric of importance is the number of story points the team can deliver per unit of calendar time. The points per sprint is the velocity, therefore we estimate everything in points for the product owner so that he creates a release roadmap based on team velocity and adjust the plan if velocity changes. The way we do story point estimation gives better estimates than hourly estimates as they are more accurate and have less variation. Story points are therefore faster, better and cheaper than hours. Planning poker is an iterative approach to estimating. These are the steps in estimating process. Each one gets a deck of cards with valid estimate on it. Product owner reads a story and discusses briefly. Estimators select one card, cards are turned over, outliers discuss difference, try to convince why more, why less, repeat until estimates converge. Advantages: it's quick and fun, combining individual estimates through group discussion leads to better estimates, emphasizes relative rather than absolute estimating. Estimates are constrained to a set of values, so you don't waste time in meaningless argument. Everyone's opinion is heard.